In this video, we are going to look for the top 10 checkmates that you must know. So here we are going to look for the first checkmate, that is by playing e4 where black replies c5, the Skillian defense. We begin with knight to f3, black plays d6. Now we all know that in Skillian defense we all take the control on the center by playing d4. Here black decides to take that, knight takes the pawn. Black decides to develop another knight attacking our pawn, so we must protect it by playing knight to c3. Then comes g6. Now black plays g6 especially to develop the bishop that we must understand. And in this position, most common reply that we must play is f4. Actually, we can push the pawn by playing e5 and can create the control on the center as well as attacking the knight, which is the good point. So black decides here to play bishop to g7. We play e5 as we discussed. Black takes the pawn, we take the pawn back, and this time it is attacking the knight. So knight goes to g4, and then comes bishop to b5, giving a check. Now this time we can confirm that if bishop protects it, then we can take that free knight. And remember that this is the pin. If it takes, if it protects with the knight, then what we can do is we can create the attack, and at last we can win the rook, which is the good advantage. So in this position, playing king to f8 seems better. Now in this position, we are going to begin with knight to e6, giving a check, and this time king can only go to g8 square. So in this position, black decides to take this knight, and we play queen cross d8, giving the checkmate. So here we are going to look for the second checkmate, in which white begins with e4, black plays c6, the Karukan defense. Here we play d4, black replies d5, then we play knight to c3. Black decides to take the pawn, we take the pawn from the knight, then comes bishop to f5, attacking the knight. So in order to protect our knight, we must play bishop to d3. And now we can see that black has a free pawn, so black captures that free pawn. But in actual, capturing the free pawn is not correct, since we can begin with knight to f3, attacking the queen. And this time many of you are going to say that queen is going to be at d8. Here we play queen to e2, knight comes to f6, and this time we take the knight. Since this pawn cannot capture it as it is a pin, so black plays g cross f6. We capture the free bishop, and this time black plays queen to a5, giving a check where black can win the bishop. So we develop our bishop by playing bishop to d2, which is attacking the queen. So black must take that bishop, and if black takes the bishop, then we are going to long castle. Now black plays queen to e6, offering an exchange. Also offering an exchange, and it is attacking the pawn at a2. So we must play queen to d3, since we don't want to exchange our queen. And in this position, black takes the pawn. Now it is threatening a checkmate in one. So in order to prevent this, we can play queen to d8, giving a check, which is brilliant queen sacrifice. Now if black takes the queen, then comes bishop to a5, giving a check, which is a double check because there is a rook as well. So king goes to e8, and this is the checkmate. Here we are going to look for the third checkmate trap, where white begins with e4, black replies e5. Then comes knight to f3, developing the knight, attacking the e5 pawn. So in order to protect it, black should play knight to c6. Then comes bishop to c4, knight to f6. Then comes knight to g5, creating the attack on the weakest square, which is the f7 square. And black replies with d5 in order to protect that f7 square from such attacks. And now we can see that our bishop is under attack. So in order to protect it, we must take the pawn. Now this is attacked to knight. So black decides to take the pawn. And if black takes it, then that is completely a mistake since we can sacrifice our knight, creating a double attack on the queen and the rook. So black must take that. And if black takes it, then comes queen to f3, giving a check, where it is going to attack the knight, creating a double attack on the knight. King goes to g8, then comes bishop cross d5, giving a check, bishop to e6, and then comes the checkmate, that is bishop cross e6 mate. Mate where white begins with e4, black replies e5, knight to c3, knight to c6, then comes d4, which is the Scots game. Black decides to take the pawn, then we capture from the knight. Black decides to develop another knight, then comes knight to c3. Here, black plays g6 in order to develop this bishop. So we play bishop to g5, pinning the knight. Then comes bishop to g7. You can see that there is a double attack on our knight, but we are going to safely ignore it by playing knight to d5, which is a brilliant knight sacrifice. Where if black decides to take it, then we are going to begin with brilliant queen sacrifice. And if black captures it, then knight to f6, giving a check, king goes to f8, and then comes the checkmate, bishop to x6, mate. Now here we are going to look for the fifth trap, where you are going to win in just 9 moves. Here we begin with e4, black replies e5, then comes bishop to c4. Now we can begin with knight to f6, attacking the pawn. So here we play knight to f3. Here we enter to Petrov's defense. Black decides to take our pawn. So we develop another knight, offering another knight exchange. And black accepts the knight exchange. And we enter into Vienna game. Now in this position, black decides to open his other bishop hanging over there by playing d6. And I'm pretty sure that black can develop the bishop over here, pinning the knight. That may come to your mind as well. So here we castle for king safety, and black decides to play bishop to g4 as we discussed, pinning the knight. But I am pretty sure that you know the stunning move in this position. And that stunning move is sacrificing the queen. And if black captures it, then completely it is a blunder since we can begin with bishop cross f7, giving a check. King goes to e7, and then comes the checkmate. And you can understand that in just 9 moves, by sacrificing your queen, you defeated your opponent. And now imagine how your opponent's reaction would be. Here we are going to look for the sixth trap as black pieces where white plays e4, then we reply e5, knight goes to f3. So in order to protect our pawn which is under attack by the knight, we can play knight to f6, then come bishop to c4, the Italian game. We are going to play knight to f6. You can see that we discussed about right river attack where knight goes to g5 and create attack on the f7 pawn. But in this position, in this game, white played knight to c3, then comes knight cross e4, grabbing the free pawn. Now why I call it a free pawn? Let's look on it. If white captures the knight, then we play d5, creating a double attack on the knight and the bishop. And if black gives up the bishop, then we can capture the free bishop. Knight goes to c3, attacking our queen. Then comes queen to a5, which is a safe square. Now white plays d3 in order to develop another bishop. Here we are going to play bishop to g5. Now the most tricky idea here in this position is that we can play knight to d4 and can create an attack on this knight, creating a pressure on the knight, which you can see. Bishop goes to d2 and then comes knight to d4, creating the pressure on the knight as we discussed. Knight goes to e2, and now this time white is attacking the queen with this bishop that you can see. So we play queen to d5 protecting the queen. Then comes c4 attacking the queen. And in this position we are going to play a brilliant queen sacrifice where if white accepts it, then comes knight cross f3 giving a check. King goes to x1 and then comes bishop to x3. That is a checkmate. Now here we are going to look for the seventh checkmate trap into Scandinavian defense as black pieces as you can see. White begins with d4, then we reply d5, the Scandinavian defense. White decides to capture the pawn, so we play knight to f6, attacking the pawn, and white grabs an opportunity to protect his pawn by playing c4. Then we play e6, offering another pawn. White decides to take the pawn, then we capture it from the bishop. Now comes d4. Now you can understand that white plays d4 for opening both of the bishops, creating the control on the center as well. And in the upcoming move, white can push the pawn forward and can attack our bishop. So in this position, we begin with one of the forcing moves, that is bishop to b4 giving a check, where white protects the check by developing its knight. Now we can create an attack over this knight by taking the advantage of our pin. Guess what? The move can be knight to e4. Now comes queen to d3. Queen to d3 is not a very nice move, but in the game white played queen to d3. And in this position we begin with bishop to f5. Now you can understand that we are going to attack with the open diagonal. So white understands the thought and white plays queen to e3. Now you can see that queen pins the knight. So in the next move, white can push the pawn at f3 and can attack our knight. So we must castle for king safety and to avoid such pins. Then comes bishop to e2, develop the bishop. Now comes rook to e8. Now you can once again attack that we played rook to e8, creating the control over the e file. And in the next move, we can grab this free knight and can create the attack on the queen. So white plays queen to f3. Now comes the shocking move, that is queen cross d4, capturing the free pawn. We don't care for our bishop, which is the problem. In this position, white captures our bishop and then comes knight cross c3, where white captures the knight. Then comes bishop cross c3, giving a check, attacking the rook as well. But don't be in a doubt that in next move we are going to capture the rook. In this position, king goes to f1 and then comes queen to d1, which is a brilliant queen sacrifice where if white captures the queen, then comes the checkmate. Here we are going to look for the 8 checkmate trap where white begins with d4, then comes e5, knight to c3, the Vienna game, knight to f6, bishop to c4 developing the bishop, black captures the pawn. Now we begin with queen to h5, creating a mate in just one move. So black plays knight to g5, preventing the checkmate. Then comes d4, attacking the knight with our bishop. Knight goes to e6, blocking the way of bishop, preventing the checkmate. Then comes d5, attacking the knight. So black plays g6, attacking our queen. And in this position, we are going to sacrifice our queen. I will be telling you why. In this position, black captures the queen, and when we capture our f7 pawn, then king goes to e7, then comes bishop to g5 giving a check, and if black goes to king to d6, then you can capture the free queen. But in this game, you must not capture the free queen. You can begin with long castling, king goes to c5, then comes rook to d5 giving a check, king takes the bishop, then comes b3 giving a check, king takes our knight as well, and then comes the checkmate. Here we are going to discuss for the ninth checkmate trap where we are going to sacrifice almost all of our pieces where we begin with e4, black replies e5, then comes knight to f3. Now black plays d5, we capture the free pawn. Black captures our pawn, then comes bishop to c4, attacking the f7 pawn. So black have a tricky idea here. Black plays queen to g5, attacking our knight, also attacking the g2 pawn. But we don't care for our g2 pawn, and instead we capture the free pawn, attacking the rook and our queen. Queen captures the g2, attacking the rook, and we are not going to protect our rook anymore. We are going to play queen to h5, attacking along the deadly diagonal. Where if black captures the rook, then we allow it to capture our bishop as well. Now it's completely our turn and we begin with development of our knight, giving another rook as well. Where black captures the rook and then comes knight to d6 giving a check, where king goes to e7, queen goes to e8 giving a check, giving a free knight, where black captures the knight and then comes the checkmate. Alright, now we are going to look for the last checkmate trap, which was specially played by Bobby Fischer as white, where he played e4, black played e5, then comes knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, beginning with Italian game, then black played bishop to c5. Now Fischer had a tricky idea in his mind and he began with b4, creating the attack on the bishop, beginning with Ivan's gambit, where black captured the pawn, then we begin with c3 attacking the bishop. Bishop goes to a5 and then bishop played d4, creating the control on the center. Black captures the pawn and then we can make sure that we cannot capture the pawn since we have a pin, and in this position white castle, then comes d cross c3, grabbing another free pawn. Now we begin with queen to p3, attacking along a long open diagonal towards the f7 pawn, which is the weakest pawn. Queen goes to e7, protecting the pawn. Then comes knight cross c3, developing our knight. Knight goes to f6, knight to d5, attacking the queen as well. Now knight captures the knight, we captures the knight, then comes knight to e5, attacking our bishop as well. So for our safety of this bishop, we must take that knight. And in this position, black captures the knight, attacking along the open diagonal towards the rook, which can be taken. So we must protect it by playing bishop to b2, attacking along a long open diagonal, not only at the queen but also at the g7 square. Queen goes to g5, protecting the square. Then comes h4, giving the pawn. So black captures the pawn and then we begin with bishop cross g7, rook goes to g8, we begin with rook to f, rook to e1, where if bishop captures the rook there is no problem because we can capture it from another rook, and king goes to d8, then comes queen to g3, offering a queen exchange, where black accepts it and then comes bishop to f6, that is a checkmate.